Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Death of Superman Part 1, Chapter 2, Power Containment. Alright, so this is a digital comic book, and it's a fun little comic book, and it's on the cheap. It's seriously on the cheap. But let's get into the story right after we find out who's doing this book. So we got Louise Simonson is writing, artist Kat Staggs, colorist Wendy Broom, letterer Carlos M. Manguel, cover artist Jerry Ordway with Wendy Broom, editor Christy Quinn. So, this comic, I talked about this. Let's just do the story. Basically, it's him fighting Parasite. That's it. Him fighting Parasite. It's all resolved by the end of the comic book. And then at the very end, he hears a very familiar voice, apparently screaming, they need help. Interesting. So, what happens is he... I don't know, man. Like, this is just a comic book where he beats up a major powerhouse player in one lousy issue. When push comes to shove, on the outskirts, on the breadth of it, it sounds like this is a good book. The idea is solid, but the application isn't. What I imagined in the previous issue, when I understood what was happening, and then it came to kind of fruition here, is that this is a version of Nightfall. If anybody remembers, that's the comic book the comic book arc where Batman, back in the 90s, was fighting against all these different characters. Bane had come along. It was his first grand appearance, his first major appearance besides Vengeance of Bane, where he showed up. He blew a hole in the walls of Arkham Asylum, and all the bad guys were released, and Batman had to spend like a month containing all these guys, getting zero sleep, and at the end, Bane went up, beat him up, slapped him around, and broke his back, and threw him off of a pedestal. But the idea is, and then eventually he was replaced. So, yeah, here, that's supposed to be what's happening, but it's not. It's not at all. Basically, Superman is just fighting all these bad guys. Now, in the previous issue, he fought and defeated Metallo, and in this one, it's Parasite. So what's next? In the next issue, he's going to fight freaking, I don't know, Solomon Grundy. He's going to beat up Bizarro in another issue. All these powerful players, these major players that would typically take an entire story arc to beat, he's going to defeat them all in one issue. Okay. I let a lot of things slide with this. The art isn't great. It's not bad, but it's not great. And by that, I mostly mean the movement. The movement doesn't look it looks like people who are posing for movement. Like, if you want to take a picture of you running, but you don't want it to be blurry, so you stand on one foot and put your other foot behind you and move your arms out, and then, you look like you're running, but you're just standing still. There is not a soul on earth, I'm talking about kids as well, who would look at this picture and think that you're actually running. But they understand that you're showing the action of running while not actually running. But when it comes to a big Hollywood production, they would tell you, yeah, kid, maybe pump the brakes on the silly little stances and invest in a more high-powered camera that will take, quicker frame rate pictures while you're moving, so there are no blurs. So that's the difference here. This looks a lot like Superman is posing in the middle of running as opposed to actually running. This is a weekly comic book, it seems, so okay, it's cool. They're just trying to pump these out really quick. That's fine. They're trying to capitalize off of the success inherent in the animated Death of Superman movie that had come out. So, I get it. This is so sad. This is so sad. You can tell it feels like I'm stumbling over my words because I don't want to say anything bad about this. I get it. The thing is, I don't blame the people who actually wrote or drew this comic book for the relatively weak story, for the relatively weak art. It's a grand plot, but it's kind of weak. You know what I'm saying? And I don't blame any of the people who actually made this comic book. Who I'm blaming is DC themselves. It's probably the marketing team, or more specifically, somebody higher up in the corporate level in charge of finances, who said, that movie, that Superman animated Death of Superman movie, Part 1, did really well. So while we're waiting for Reign of Superman to come out, why don't we go ahead and put out a comic book? Just make it digital so it'll go out faster. Just pump a whole bunch of these out and capitalize on it. And it feels that way. That's a shame. It's a lot like what happened with Star Trek Discovery. You could tell it was just a corporate money grab. These aren't people who are actually huge fans of the darn thing. They're just people who are trying to make money off of it, and they're sending people who have done this before. Literally, like it's somebody in corporate who said, hey, who's the person who wrote the Death of Superman originally in the comic books back in '92? I'm like, well, this person, whoa, calm down. I don't need all those people doing this. We're going to make this low budget. The Louise Simonson girl, see if she's willing to do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one of those kind of things. That's what it sounds like to me. Like people who don't know who Louise Simonson is, who all these artists are. You know, it's people who don't know the real story. They're just simply saying, look, there's an opportunity to make money off of this. That's what this feels like. And that's what really bothers me about it. So that's what I'm angry about. Wow, that just feels so good to get all that out. So I didn't actually insult the people who were making the comic book, because that's not what I do. But I am kind of coming down on the comic book. Not particularly hard, because it's still entertaining. But you can tell that a lot of things were just made to happen. Case in point, if Parasite's in Bel Rev, and he's in the prison facility there, why would it be bars that he's behind as opposed to solid bulletproof glass? Just out of curiosity. So that's the way things are the way they are for the sake of convenience to get the lousy story out. And that's it. He was beaten in pretty much the exact same way that Metallo was beaten in the previous episode, the previous issue. There's no real thought process to this. It's like, okay, they need to pump something out. I'm getting a paycheck. Let's just pump it out. The problem with it is, while they are going to make a little bit of money off of this, the thing is that these writers and the writer and the artists involved in this, they're going to get paid whatever they're going to get paid, but it's kind of bringing down their credibility just a bit. That's what bugs me about this. I don't think I would have taken on this project if I could have thought of a better idea faster. That's just me. Anyway, guys, way too long on this video for this comic book. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.